Now let's take you back to one of our top stories this morning. That's the meeting of world leaders to discuss NATO's future strategy in Afghanistan.
Now, while a conflict in that country is the topic of discussion, there are other concerns for the grouping. Dr Adam Lockyer from the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney has been looking at NATO's strategic alliances. And he joins us now from Sydney. Adam Lockyer, good morning. From your assessment, how did NATO emerge from this very important conference, not just for Afghanistan, but for its own future?
Yeah, so this conference was unusual for a number of different reasons, and one of the first was that this is only the second time that the conference, the summit, has been held outside of Europe. So this is going to be showing signs of shifts in the relationship. In part, this was simply because this is an election year and Obama wanted to be on the world stage and present himself as presidential and present himself as a statesman. But it also goes and cuts a bit deeper than that, the European economies are in deep trouble, that they're all scaling back on their military budgets, and so NATO just isn't as important to the United States as it once was. And so the United States is far more comfortable in saying we're the biggest boy on the block and the party is going to be at our house. Do
you see NATO here, based on that assessment, striving for some relevance as certainly America's strategic focus switches squarely to our region?
Yeah, so I think that Europe still remains America's most important region to its security and to its strategic outlook. However, we do see larger shifts taking place. Not only were NATO countries invited to the summit this time, but 22 Asian and other regional countries were also invited to the summit. This was in part to discuss their ongoing commitments to Afghanistan, but this cuts a bit deeper than that also, that we do see a shift in economic and military power to the Far East. And so these alliances are becoming just as important to the United States as their traditional European allies.
We've seen continued pressure, albeit in lower levels at this conference, to switch NATO's focus from its traditional one of defending the continent, but now that priority has dipped a bit. The Americans certainly want to see more NATO troops, more boots on the ground in countries like Afghanistan and Libya.
Absolutely. So the Europeans have traditionally been focused on territorial defence, defending their own borders. And during the Cold War, that was working to the United States' advantage to defend Europe against Soviet aggression. However, since the end of the Cold War, the United States has been working with NATO to make it a far more mobile, far-reaching organisation that can go off to places like Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and meet threats where they occur. Now, with this era of austerity and Europeans cutting back on their military budgets, we see this switch back to more of a territorial focus. And once again, the United States is becoming slowly frustrated with its European allies, with them looking back rather than looking forward.
Okay, Adam Lockyer, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Michael.